Good morning. Welcome to First Jefferson Unitarian Universalist Church in Fort Worth, Texas. My name is Annie Foerster, and I'm minister at First Jefferson. Since you can't come to church this morning, we are bringing worship to you. There are just 4 or 5 of us in the church today to bring you this service. We're keeping social distance from one another, so we have the same issues that you do at home, keeping safe and staying healthy. Remember, company is only a phone call away. You are not really alone because we are all in this together. My topic this morning is paying attention as a spiritual practice. It's a timely topic in that you probably have more time to do it than you normally would. I hope it brings you discovery and peace. But for now, let us begin our worship together with music. My call to worship this morning is from the poet Gretchen Haley. She wrote, "Do not fail to be surprised by the catching of your breath, the quickening of your heart, the fullness of your eyes wide and suddenly awake with awe. Here is a place filled with wonder that still there might be something new born today, that we might be born anew today. Do not fail to notice the changing, the life-full and abundant, already beginning by our coming together, already possible by the promises we make, to give, to receive, to become more together, and to forgive. Again and again, the falling short that is always already here. Here we find ourselves among the courageous, feeling ourselves trying to become brave with each in and out of breath, each word, each pause, each song. We give thanks to be on this journey, in this faith together. Come, let us worship together. And let us begin our worship with a hymn. Number 40 in our hymn book, "The Morning Hangs a Signal." I think it's one you know. Sing along with me if you will.
Silence
going to light our chalice this morning with the words of the Reverend L.A. McCrae. Excuse me. They're on your screen, so say them with me. Let us walk with each other through the journey of life, attentive to the path and its challenges, illuminating the dark places and leading with love. Let the lighting of our chalice illuminate our journey this morning and share the love in our hearts. And as we do every morning, let us repeat our affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. I was going to say you may be seated, but I'm assuming you didn't stand up if you're listening at home. And again, this Sunday, let me thank the crew that allows us to bring you this service while we are sheltering in place. Guy Thornton, David Winkowski, Misha Beresnev, and today Julie Hevelone, who is learning to be a backup, and me, Annie Foerster. Do not forget to mail in your pledge, and if you haven't already done so, send a pledge for the next fiscal year. We know that times are tough for everybody, and we're not asking you to do more than you can. So thank you for your generosity. If you're not working during this time of crisis, please take care of yourself and your family first. And we've started a new program, Taking Care of Pets. If you have some extra pet food you want to donate, there'll be a box outside the church door, and we're going to work with Eastside Ministries to provide food through the food bank for pets of people who are at home. And now is the time for the story of all ages, so if you've got children at home, you might want to invite them in, or the ones who just like stories. This is one from my colleague Christopher Bice, and he writes, "There was once a little girl who was walking beside a creek when she happened to see a frog who looked very sad. 'I wonder why that frog is so sad,' she asked herself. And then she remembered a story once told by her mother about a girl who had kissed a frog and magically turned him into a handsome prince. 'Maybe that's why the frog's so sad,' she said. 'No one will kiss him so that he can become a prince.' So she decided that she would give the frog a kiss herself. She did so, but nothing happened. There was still just a frog sitting in her hand. She set the frog back on the ground and said, 'Poor froggy, I'm sorry I couldn't turn you into a handsome prince.' And the frog replied, 'Oh, but you have done something far better. You have made me a happy frog.' And the frog hopped off with a great big smile on his face. So if you're walking through the woods one day and happen to see a little girl picking up frogs and kissing them, don't try to stop her. She knows what she's doing. Frogs need love too, you know. You may not be able to see the frog change on the outside, but believe me, a little love and attention makes everyone feel like royalty on the inside." This is the time in our service when what we call communion of names and milestones, where we talk about the stories that live in this community. I have another public service announcement, things that are surprisingly fun while sheltering in place. Try this. It will take a bit of money and some tools, but the results will delight you for days to come. Why not install new knobs and handles on your kitchen or bathroom cabinets? It will freshen up your space and is cheaper than redecorating the entire room. I know because I've done it. And as I said before, Carl Thibodeau and Joe Burnham are together working on this new project for First Jefferson. They're joining an organization called Don't Forget to Feed Me that provides food for pets during these uncertain times. We're hoping to become a drop-off center, partnering with Eastside Ministries for distribution. Bring dried or canned foods to the church, and we will see that it goes to the hungriest pets. The box is out today, and I saw 3 giant bags of dried dog food, so I know it's going to work. And thank you for everybody who contributes to that. Let us take a moment of shared silence to consider what everyone is going through in these difficult times, and to know that you are not alone. Think about the people that you would be meeting if you came to church like we usually do, and know that they live in your heart and minds. Let us be silent together. And now let us have some music. My reading today is from Wendell Berry. He called it The Vacation. Once there was a man who filmed his vacation. He went flying down the river in his boat with his video camera to his eye, making a moving picture of the moving river upon which his sleek boat moved swiftly toward the end of his vacation. He showed his vacation to his camera, which pictured it, preserving it forever. The river, the trees, the sky, the light, the bow of his rushing boat behind which he stood with his camera, preserving his vacation even as he was having it, so that after he had had it, he would still have it. It would be there. With a flick of a switch, there it would be. But he would not be in it. He would never be in his vacation. Please join me in singing our hymn 356, Will You Seek in Far Off Places? Go. We'll seek in far off places, surely you'll come home at last. In familiar forms and faces, things best known, you When I was much younger, my father and I shared a Christmas tradition that made us both happy, not just for the gifts exchange, but because of the money we saved on our gifts. You see, we both enjoyed the magazine Reader's Digest, both for its jokes and its many articles we otherwise might have missed. If you renewed your annual subscription around Christmas time, you got an opportunity to purchase other subscriptions as gifts at half price. So every other year, I would renew my subscription and give a gift to my dad. And then the following year, he would renew his and give me a gift subscription. And then we would congratulate each other for our thriftiness and our cleverness. Though I recall the enjoyment I got out of that little magazine, I don't remember much of what I read in its pages. I can't recall any of the jokes. But one article stood out for me with such power that I remember it to this day. It asked the question, when something happens to you, do you act or do you react? The article made quite an impression on me. I was young. It was the first time I thought to question myself in this way, to examine why I did certain things, said certain things when confronted with issues. I learned from reading this article that I could, possibly should, stop for a moment, consider what was going on, and then decide how I wanted to proceed. Did it really benefit me to say the first thing that came into my mind? Did I really believe what was at the top of my brain or the tip of my tongue? Or was I just mouthing something I'd heard or learned from someone else? In other words, was I reacting instead of acting with intention? It was the first time I realized I could pay attention to the emotions that sprang from deep within me, brought forth by outside forces. And I could decide if I wanted to act on these emotions or if I wanted to have a more studied response. Did I want to react, that is, act without thought, or did I want to act out of keeping with my true values, my genuine beliefs? Perhaps I remember this article so clearly because it was not an easy lesson to learn. I could immediately understand the value of not reacting, of thinking things through before I spoke, but it was not easy to break the habit of acting first and thinking later, of paying attention to what was really going on inside me. What does it mean to pay attention? What does it mean to be known as a person who pays attention? That's the question I want to explore today. Paying attention to yourself is only the beginning. If you stop there, you miss the best part of the world. You know that feeling you have when you drive a familiar road, say the route you take to and from work each day, and get to your destination and realize you don't remember a thing from that journey, not the landscape, not the other cars, not the moves and maneuvers you had to make to drive your vehicle apace? Well, unfortunately, many of us live our lives that way as well. Oh, we have responsibilities. Responsibilities are a big factor in the lives of the oblivious. And we have routines necessary to accomplish all that needs to get done. Shopping on Wednesday, vacuuming on Friday, washing on Saturday, or simply the routine of getting yourself through a single day. I have convinced myself over the years that if I don't get my creative work done by noon, it won't get done at all. I'm a morning person, I tell myself. It's just the way things are. Don't ask me to think creatively in the afternoon and never in the evening. And yet every once in a while, I find something that inspires me in those supposedly sterile times of my day. And I surprise myself with what I can do when the day leans toward longer shadows. Of course, we can't do everything we might want to do. Of course, we have to focus on what's important. Every day we are bombarded with sensations, with sights and sounds that might lure us from our course, with distractions and misdirections. We have to choose, but do we choose by acting or reacting? Let me tell you a story that illustrates what I mean. Once, two friends were walking down the sidewalk of a busy city street during rush hour. There were all sorts of noises in the city, car horns honking, feet shuffling, people talking. And amid all this noise, one of the friends turned to the other and said, "I hear a cricket." "Oh, no way," her friend responded. "How could you possibly hear a cricket with all of this noise? You must be imagining it. Besides, I've never seen a cricket in the city." "No," said the first friend, "I really do hear a cricket. Listen, I'll show you." And she stopped for a moment, then led her friend across the street to the big cement planter with a tree in it. Pushing back some leaves, she found a little brown cricket. "Well, that's amazing," said her friend. "You must have superhuman hearing. What's your secret?" "Oh, no, my hearing is just the same as yours," said the first woman. "There's no secret. Watch, I'll show you." And she reached into her purse, pulled out some loose change, and threw it on the sidewalk. Amid all the noise of the city, everyone within 30 feet turned their head to see where the sound of money was coming from. "See," she said, "it's all a matter of what you're listening for." So, what are you out his or her child's voice in a crowded playground? Show me a child who can't hear the sound of the ice cream truck 6 blocks away. Where is your attention focused? More importantly, perhaps, what are you missing from a more narrow focus? Every morning just before sunrise, my dog Liam and I go for a walk in our neighborhood. I love that quieter time of day. I love watching the sun come up, watching the world come alive. I do not pay attention to the smells along our route as much as Liam does. I do, however, while I'm enjoying the creation of the new day, pay attention to the sounds of autos coming up behind us so I can pull Liam to the side of the road for his own protection. I do pay attention to the weather so I know how to dress for the half hour that our walk takes. But other than these essentials necessary for our safety, I try to pay attention to the sounds and sights of morning. They are different every morning, though our route is almost always the same. It took me a while to pay attention, to learn how to do this. But there is bird song, not always the same mixture or the same tunes from the soloists. There is scolding from the squirrels as we pass by, and complaints from the cats whose territory we disturb. And I try to pay attention to the sights. Each spring I remember when a friend who was skilled at paying attention told me he always tried to catch the trees bursting into leaf each spring. It seemed that every year he missed it. One day there would be bare branches, and the next day they had tiny leaves all over them. And then one day he really looked at the trees around him, and do you know what he saw? He saw that he had been looking for green, and green isn't what announces that the trees are ready to give birth to leaves. The color to look for, he told me, is pink. The day before a tree leaves, there is a nimbus of pink buds, not flowers, but the tips of the emerging leaves before they unfold. In the spring, I look for that cloud of pink. I pay attention. In our busy technological worlds, only morning dog walkers or gardeners pay attention to such attractions. I sometimes ask my friend, "Did you see that sunrise this morning?" And they say, "No, I didn't notice. They were busy or they were still asleep." And I would sometimes say, "Did you see that full moon last night?" But they didn't know it was full moon time, so they didn't look. I often think of early humans watching the stars in the nighttime sky. How long do you suppose it took them to notice that the same stars made the same patterns that shifted slightly as the seasons unfolded? Well, yes, they were unencumbered by shelters with drapes that draw and doors that lock. They had time to look at those things, to pay attention. But we might be able to enjoy those splendid theatrics if we learned to pay attention as well. How much we miss of the splendor of the world we share. We don't even know how much that is. Stop and smell the roses. Do you know how many of your neighbors that you drive by daily even have roses in their yards? Have you noticed? Or are they not on your list of things that you pay attention to? Nature notwithstanding, what else are we missing by not paying attention? We're often missing ourselves, our own true natures, or the shell that others see. We live in our bodies, but often ignore them. You know, I teach yoga, and I'm always amazed at how many people don't know where their bodies are or what they are doing. Flat back, I remind the yogis as I call out a posture that requires our bodies to create a single plane. And sometimes I look out on a sea of triangles, bottoms at the apex. But sadder than missing ourselves by not paying attention, I think, is that we are missing one another, or the best parts of one another. Here's another story that I have to share. It's a story told of a rabbi in ancient times who gathered his students together very early one morning while it was still dark. He put this question to them: how can you tell when night ends and morning begins? One student made a suggestion. Could it be when you can see an animal and you can tell whether it's a sheep or a goat? No, that's not it, answered the rabbi. Another student said, could it be when you look at a tree in the distance and you can tell whether it's a fig tree or a peach tree? And again the rabbi said, good answer, but that's not it. After a few more guesses, the students said, well, how do you tell when the night has ended? And the rabbi answered, it is when you look on the face of any man or woman and you see them as your brother or your sister. If you cannot do this, then no matter what time it is still night. You are still in the dark. How wonderful it will be to be able to see the faces of our friends in this beloved community again when we gather once more in our building on Sunday mornings. Have you ever noticed when you are in a place where you don't expect to see anyone you know, how a familiar face will simply make you smile? In a grocery store, for instance, where your attention is focused on finding the freshest fruit or the leanest meat, the face of a friend or a mere acquaintance brings a sense of warmth to your heart. In a meeting where you went to learn something but came alone, finding a person you know in the audience makes learning so much more pleasant. It's an automatic response. It's the way we're made. But let me ask you this as well. Have you ever noticed that when you smile at a stranger, that person usually smiles back? They're not completely a stranger anymore. That's still a way from seeing them as a sister or a brother, but I think it's a beginning. We take other people for granted sometimes. If they are not part of our circle, they become extraneous to us. We don't look to see if they have problems or sadness or a great joy they would like to share. We tend not to pay attention lest they draw us away from our precious routines. I've noticed something in this time of crisis. There are people who make it their business to pay attention to other people, to people they do not know. I have noticed several times on Nextdoor, the neighborhood online news source, there are pictures of signs that people have put out on the river trails or in their neighborhoods in places where they will be noticed. They are signs of encouragement, signs of gratitude for others' presence, and signs of hope. Don't give up, they say. You are not alone. There are people who are paying attention, and I am inspired by them. I have tried in the past few weeks to make it a point to thank those people who are available to meet my needs. Grocery store and drugstore clerks, postal workers, garbage collectors. I try to pay attention to how they are handling this crisis. Attendants at checkout lanes often look harried. As I take my receipt, I ask them how they're holding up, and I thank them for being there. I tell them to stay safe. My job doesn't require me to take the risks they are required to observe every hour. I learned this week that the man who controls the lifts of the recycle pickup truck loves his job because the pay is good and the hours are not long, and he's studying to get a college degree so that someday he can do the job he really loves. Garbage men have lives of varying complexity, just like the rest of us. Why did I never consider asking one of them about themselves before this? Before I longed for someone to pay attention to and found them all around me, though not the people I'm used to having around me, I haven't been paying attention. So, what does it mean to be a people of attention? What does it mean to have that as a core value? It means you can be richer than you are. It means that you can have experiences and friends and understandings you don't even realize were available to you. It could mean that you can know yourself better, and knowing yourself that you can understand other people better. It means that kindness and gratitude, wonder and excitement, awe and laughter, silence and tears, beauty and opportunity are all around us. And all we have to do to make them ours is to pay attention. Here's a question we need to ask ourselves more often, a number of questions actually. See if you can tell who asked them. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is, but I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down in the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, and how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? You may recognize the questioner as the poet Mary Oliver. Oliver did know how to pay attention. If you ever wonder how you might be better at it, just open up a book to any one of her poems and any page that she wrote. Then look up and look around you. What do you see? So, what do you plan to do when the pandemic is over, when the world returns to normalcy? Go back to your routines, focus on your goals, find old friends? Or would you like to try something new, something that might amaze you? Whoever you are, Mary Oliver told us, no matter how lonely the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. Your place in the family of things is right in front of you. Just pay attention. Please join me in singing our closing hymn, number 112 in the hymn book, Do You Hear? Service is just about over, and as I extinguish the chalice, I wish once again that you were all here before me. but I know that you are with me in these times and these troubles, and that when we extinguish our chalice, you take it into your hearts and your minds. Parker Palmer said, "For all my love of the human tribe, I find strange solace in the fact that in the end, the rocks and weeds and insects will outlast us all. Mother Nature will triumph. But how grand it would be if with that awareness we could uncenter ourselves. How grand it would be if we could put the largeness of life itself, not our egos, at the center of our attention, our care, and our active concern. So may it be in all our lives."